Hi, I'm Barry from Tondoon Botanic Gardens. We're talking about bonsai and what bonsai actually is and what bonsai means to people and then why we have them here at Tondoon. So bonsai is actually, you can split the word in two. Bon, which is actually your pot, and zai, which is actually your plant. It doesn't have to be a tree as long as it's any woody plant. So it could actually be a shrub. It could also be a climber or a vine type plant. So bonsai has been going for over 1,000 years. It originated in China. And while it's also been in Japan for over 1,000 years, the Chinese did start it. But the Japanese really refined the art form. So you could really think of bonsai as a perfect fusion between horticulture, looking after plants in a pot, but also the art form of actually sculpting a plant. So we were looking at something that's got to be authentic. You want the replication of nature, an old tree and the awe of looking at an old tree when you go to the forest or into a park, but just an old tree in a very small pot. At Tondoon, we have several bonsai and a collection that's ever growing. But bonsai is obviously also not just a plant in a plastic pot. It's a plant that's got to be in a bonsai pot to be formally called bonsai. So here we have probably around 20-25 trees that formally you could call a bonsai, and a lot of plants that's actually being trained to become bonsai. But then it's also important to remember that it's a plant, ever growing, ever to be changed. So here's a classic example of what I would consider to be a bonsai. We've got a Ficus rubiginosa, so it's a Port Jackson fig. It's something that's iconic in Australia really, and especially if we're in Queensland, there's a lot of these plants natively growing in Queensland. This was actually a very special tree. It was a donated tree to us from a special lady from the Gold Coast Bonsai Club. She donated this tree to us probably around about 6 years ago. It's a tree of approximately 30 years of age, and it's a beautiful representation of what I spoke of before, where bonsai's got to represent a tree in nature that you would go and see. Because I could see myself standing here in miniature form, looking up to this magnificent big canopied ficus growing spectacularly in a park or in nature. Now, if this is a bonsai, what is this then? So this is what we would consider a development tree. We grow a lot of our development trees actually in orchid pots because of the good aeration they provide us and really good drainage they provide us. It's also a pot that's not super big, so if you wanted to transplant at some stage and someday in a bonsai pot, it doesn't make it that hard to do. But you can see the classic difference in the tree. Obviously it's not as old, but it's also being left to grow quite a lot because you need to let the tree grow, then cut it back, wire, let it grow. Cut it back, wire, so that you can actually create the tree that you're after in a proper bonsai like this. So here's another classic example of a tree that's currently in development to become a bonsai. It's a Gajera salicifolia, and it's a very special tree for us here at Tondoon because it's actually a Port Curtis native plant. Now Port Curtis plants obviously is from just north of Bundaberg to about Mackay, following this coast, so it's our main plant region for us here where we are in Gladstone and in Tondoon. And what makes this plant quite special as well is the fact that this was actually a plant in a nursery. You can see this really big dead spire that it has on it. Obviously had some damage occurred to it in the past, and it was due for the bin. But some of the best plants are ones that's due for the bin. So while a person wouldn't want to buy that plant and plant it in his garden, for us, it could be an amazing rainforest tree, quite slender, growing towards light. Might have been struck by lightning. Who knows what happened in the past? Or violent storms come through, it's damaged, and it's got this amazing feature here of that damage that it will have and will have to preserve as it gets older so that it doesn't rot down. But in bonsai, you also have what we call kisimono, and you have an accent plant, and we've already created the accent plant for this tree. And since this is a rainforest species and actually really growing like a rainforest plant, this is this perfect accent plant for it if you formally display them, because you've got the representation of water there in the pot with blue. You have the nursery log with the ferns growing naturally onto it. So in future years, as this tree keeps on developing, gets into a bonsai pot with probably a few ferns around it as well, it'll be an amazing composition together.
My name's Mon-Fri and I'm a volunteer here at Tondoon. I have been involved with bonsai for over 10 years, so I really love working with trees. And it's great to have the opportunity where there's a lot of work to be done. So anyone that's interested, there's always room for more, and it's a good place to learn.